Looks like the clown show continues to go on in the Indiana Fever organization led by Amber Cox, clown show, Kelly Krauskopf, clown show, and the bozo of all bozos, head coach Stephanie White, who's just, all of them, they are just sabotaging Caitlin Clark's career. It looks like GM Andrew Cox fires off on Caitlin Clark fans on social media and starts blocking them as well. This is an immature, nasty organization. Caitlin Clark and her agent Aaron Kane need to demand a trade immediately. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel.
The trade request is now being openly discussed, and tonight the Indiana Fever organization appears to be in complete turmoil. Rumors about an alleged effort to undermine Caitlin Clark have reached a breaking point, and reports suggest the front office is rushing to manage the growing backlash. The issue is no longer being framed as poor coaching alone. Critics believe it points to a larger pattern of keeping one of basketball's biggest stars on the sidelines. Pressure is mounting around Stephanie White and her coaching staff as more questions emerge about the controversial decisions that are now drawing public attention.
Organization, Caitlin Clark and her agent Aaron Kane need to demand a trade immediately. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, hype the video. That'd be greatly appreciated. Let's get right into things. So we all watched the travesty that took place last night, and Stephanie White trying to crash out on Caitlin Clark, Raven Johnson fouling out in 9 minutes. I mean, it just was a complete joke by Stephanie White. I think she exposed herself. I think she exposed the fact that she's not a good coach at all, and she needs to be fired. And if you don't want to fire her,
Amber Cox has found herself at the center of criticism after a series of social media exchanges that many fans view as defensive. Rather than directly addressing concerns from the supporters who buy tickets and follow the team, critics say the general manager has treated frustrated fans like opponents. She has been accused of targeting people online, particularly those who questioned the way the team handled Clark's late removal from a recent game. Many believe this is not the kind of response expected from a professional executive unless there is a deeper problem inside the organization.
And then he also had this today. He had a bunch of things to say. So we got Amber Cox blocking Caitlin Clark fans, right? Because she can't handle the heat, so she need to get her ass up out the kitchen and get up out of here. Get your ass up out the kitchen and get up out of here. She can't handle the heat and the pressure that's coming with this, and she's bewilting under the pressure. Okay, Jason Whitlock has had this to say. Check this out. Here it says, these four women put the alphabet mafia agenda above basketball business. Your personal life should be your personal life. It should not be your business agenda. Okay. And
the controversy intensified when Cox reportedly began blocking well-known critics, including Jason Whitlock, after they publicly questioned the situation. When a general manager starts shutting out journalists and fans, many see it as a sign that the pressure has become overwhelming. Critics argue that she is struggling to handle the expectations that come with managing a generational talent. Instead of confronting the criticism directly, they say she is choosing to block voices and ignore the concerns. To many observers, it reflects an unprofessional approach that makes the organization look more like a high school drama club than a professional franchise.
Agenda above basketball business. Your personal life should be your personal life. It should not be your business agenda. Okay. And these are the four who are responsible for the sabotage of Caitlin Clark. And you too, Lynn Dunn is a part of the sabotage of Caitlin Clark. Obviously, Bozo the Clown, Stephanie White is a part of the sabotage of Stephanie White's a part of the sabotage of Caitlin Clark. GM Amber Cox, I don't do no scouting. I can't put a roster together to save my life. Amber Cox is a part of the sabotage. And president of basketball operations,
Stephanie White's coaching decisions in the most recent game drew heavy criticism and raised questions about the team's direction. During the first quarter alone, she used 11 different players in the rotation, a move that surprised both analysts and fans. Many argued that using 11 players in just 10 minutes makes it difficult for starters to establish any rhythm. In many professional leagues, critics say such an approach would face serious scrutiny. Yet in Indiana, it was presented as a legitimate strategy. For those making sabotage accusations, this decision has become a major talking point.
Like they were playing 3 games in 4 nights. It was actually Portland playing its 3rd game in 4 nights. Steph played 11 players in the first quarter. Wrong coach. 11 players in the first quarter is an atrocity. It is a fireable offense. It is a fireable offense. You got Amber Cox blocking Jason Whitlock because he's being honest and keeping it real about what is going on with the Indiana Fever. They played 11 damn players in the first quarter. They put Ty Harris into the game before they subbed Caitlin Clark back in.
Many fans continue to ask why Ty Harris returned to the floor before franchise star Caitlin Clark. That question has fueled criticism of White's latest coaching decisions. To some observers, it looked like Clark was being intentionally cooled off just as she was beginning to find momentum. Critics argue that this is no longer an isolated mistake but part of a larger pattern. They believe the coaching staff is making choices that work against the team's own interests. In their view, the team's biggest star is being treated like a role player, and frustration surrounding Clark's situation continues to grow.
The fix isn't in? Y'all don't believe the fix is in? Come on, man. A blind man could see this. This organization is a joke and a clown show. He also had this to say: if the Indiana Fever are run like a business, the decision to build around Caitlin Clark is easy. If the Indiana Fever are part of the WNBA's LGBTQ's agenda, then decisions are complicated and Caitlin Clark will be sacrificed. And it seems to be clear as day. It seems to be clear as day what they have decided.
4 women have become the focus of much of the criticism surrounding the organization: Lynn Dunn, Stephanie White, Amber Cox, and Kelly Crosskop. Some critics have labeled them the driving force behind what they describe as a campaign that prevents Clark from surpassing the league's established order. According to these accusations, personal priorities are being placed ahead of basketball decisions, damaging team chemistry in the process. Critics argue that when leadership does not fully support its best player, it creates the conditions for a major organizational breakdown.
He also had this to say: if the Indiana Fever are run like a business, the decision to build around Caitlin Clark is easy. If the Indiana Fever are part of the WNBA's LGBTQ's agenda, then decisions are complicated and Caitlin Clark will be sacrificed. And it seems to be clear as day. It seems to be clear as day what they have decided. It seems to be clear as day what they've decided. This organization is not doing right by Caitlin Clark. This organization is a circus. This organization.
Jason Whitlock was particularly outspoken in his criticism, accusing the leadership group of putting what he described as an alphabet mafia agenda ahead of winning basketball games. He argued that Clark is being used as part of a broader political movement within the WNBA. According to these claims, the organization is more focused on social image and personal interests than creating a championship culture around a once-in-a-generation shooter. Supporters of this viewpoint say that if even part of these accusations are accurate, it would help explain why many of the Fever's decisions appear difficult to understand from a basketball standpoint.
Sports, you've done a disservice to the WNBA, and that's why Amber and Kelly has to leave also. See, y'all got this little weird relationship because y'all was all part of the organization years ago and whatnot, so y'all feel like y'all can do no wrong. Y'all are literally destroying the reason why people wanted to watch this motherfucker in the first place after 30 years.
Exactly. This
is crazy. You are a fucking horrible coach.
Typical.
Shout out to Angry Fan Sports. Y'all go over there and subscribe. They are destroying the very thing that got everybody paid,
Critics have described Stephanie White's defensive system as one of the most questionable approaches currently being used in the sport. The Fever frequently switch 1 through 5 on defense, often leaving a 5 feet 9 inches guard matched up against a center near the basket. Many observers see this as a glaring mismatch that should be corrected immediately. Yet White continues to rely on the strategy night after night. Some critics argue it almost appears as though the team is being placed in difficult defensive situations on purpose, creating reasons to change rotations or shift the game's narrative. The current leadership group has also been criticized because of its shared history and long-standing relationships. Many of the people involved worked together years ago and have now reunited within the Fever organization. Critics claim this has created an environment where accountability is limited because everyone protects one another. They argue that the very thing that brought millions of new viewers to the WNBA is now being damaged by those entrusted to manage it. At the same time, many fans feel leadership appears disconnected from the frustration building across the league. Instead of building a roster around Clark with shooters and athletic defenders, critics argue that the front office has spent money on players who do not fit the team's needs. During one off-season, attention was focused on acquiring players who seemed mismatched for the system. During another, significant contracts went to veterans who failed to create major impact. Detractors say this reflects poor scouting and a misunderstanding of how to build around an elite point guard. As a result, Amber Cox has faced criticism for constructing a roster that many believe lacks a clear identity. The attention surrounding Caitlin Clark has also brought a level of scrutiny that some believe the organization was not prepared to handle. Rather than embracing the spotlight, critics say the team has become increasingly defensive. They argue that leadership appears more frustrated by Clark's popularity than focused on building a championship contender. According to these observers, when a front office begins to resent the attention generated by its own superstar, the relationship becomes difficult to repair. Supporters often compare Clark's treatment to that of stars such as Aja Wilson or Paige Bueckers. They point out that those players are not routinely removed from games early without explanation, nor are their teams experimenting with massive rotations during important stretches. Successful organizations typically rely heavily on their top talent. Critics argue that Stephanie White has done the opposite, disappointing many fans who attend games specifically to watch one of the league's most exciting players compete. Questions have also been raised about Amber Cox's public comments regarding media coverage of the team. Critics claim she expressed frustration that Clark's late scratch became a bigger story than the Fever's victory over a struggling Portland team. To some observers, that reaction suggested resentment toward the attention Clark receives. They argue that Clark remains the primary reason national interest in Indiana basketball has grown so dramatically. The criticism became louder after that same Portland team later returned and handed the Fever a lopsided defeat. For many detractors, the loss exposed weaknesses that had been hidden during the earlier victory. They argued that Stephanie White struggled to make adjustments as the game slipped away. While questionable substitutions continued, the team unraveled at both ends of the court. Critics viewed the performance as a clear example of the problems they believe exist within both the coaching staff and the front office. The fact that Jason Whitlock and other prominent commentators were reportedly blocked by the general manager has only intensified the controversy. Critics argue that organizations confident in their decisions do not need to silence opposing voices. Instead, they claim the Fever have chosen to avoid difficult conversations by limiting access on social media. Many fans view that approach as unprofessional and believe it has increased calls for Clark to eventually join an organization that fully values her talent. Even television broadcasters have started discussing Indiana's defensive approach during games. In one recent broadcast, commentators openly questioned why Clark was being left to guard much larger players in the post. They noted that Indiana switches more frequently than almost any other team in the league, even when those switches create obvious disadvantages. Critics argue that when game analysts are questioning coaching decisions in real time, it reflects serious concerns about the team's direction. As a result, some fans have become convinced that the organization is intentionally trying to limit Clark's rise. They believe the issue goes beyond ordinary mistakes and represents a larger effort to slow her development. Whether they point to unusual rotations or offensive schemes that do not maximize her strengths, these fans see a consistent pattern. In their view, the signs are visible almost every night on the court in Indiana. Claims about a hidden agenda have continued to grow as critics question decisions they believe hurt both the team and the business. From a financial perspective, many argue that building around Clark should be an obvious priority because of the fans, television ratings, and revenue she generates. However, critics believe internal politics and other priorities have sometimes taken precedence. They argue that this tension is creating division between management and those who support the team's future. In the end, critics believe the Indiana Fever must decide what kind of organization they want to be. They argue that no team can continue to undermine its best player while expecting to keep the trust of fans and the respect of the league. If the current path continues, they warn that the franchise risks losing much of what it has built. With attention focused on Stephanie White and the organization's leadership, many believe time is running short. Either major changes are made, or the Fever may ultimately be remembered as the team that failed to fully embrace the greatest opportunity it was given.